It's time again for another installment of The Basics, and on today's show, as you can see, I have Magic the Gathering out, and I want to answer a few questions that have come up in regards to the episode I filmed earlier about the 3-player Magic game. So let's get started, shall we? Wow! Magic cards! Anyways, it seems that people have been watching previous episodes of the show that have dealt with the 3-player Magic game. And I'm going to attempt to answer some questions that have popped up recently on my channel in the comments in regards to said 3-player game. And one of the things you have to remember about the 3-player game, because you're playing 2 opponents instead of 1, you're going to go through your draw deck much faster. Now, if all 3 players go through their draw deck and there is still no winner, however unlikely that may be, in the 3-player case, you will take your discard pile, your graveyard, completely reshuffle it, and you'd start from scratch. Now, you think this is almost like the original rules, but because of the 3-player, you're going to have to roll a die again to see what order people go in, going clockwise, of course, and it's going to be another tough fight. Number 2, instants, enchantments, things like that, they work almost as they would in a normal game of Magic the Gathering, except you have to announce which player you're going after. You can't just toss them down on the table and hope for the best. I've played several games in the 3-player where that's actually happened, where someone's just thrown down a card and not really been clear about where it's going. This is a must. Artifacts, for that one question that came in about artifacts, again, they work like they would in the normal 2-player game, unless it's an artifact that targets either an opponent, his creature, or one of his cards. You have to specify. Creatures and anything out on the battlefield, this is important. Because you have 2 players instead of 1, you do not need to tap your creatures per se. You do not have to turn the cards to the left half a turn. Leave them as is, because you will be attacked from 2 separate sides instead of 1. There is no point in tapping and untapping your creatures all the time. That makes little sense in a 3-player game. 2-player game, yes, you need to keep track of what's going on. 3-player game, you do not need to tap. Finally, your lands, aka mana, yes, you still have to tap them. That will give your opponents, both of them, an idea of what you're doing, which is what you need to do in a 3-player. There needs to be proper communication because of the extra player. Please tap your lands. You do not need to tap your creatures, only your lands. Not the creatures, the lands. It's good to have land. The 3-player game is actually pretty simple, but like I said, you really have to know what's going on with both of your opponents, who's got what, the amount of cards in their hands, and everything that's out on the battlefield. Yes! Now, that all being said, you also have to keep in mind that a 3-player game inserts an unstable element into the gameplay as a whole. You will have to change your idea for deck building. You'd have to add additional cards in your deck that can do more than just one thing. You might want to rely more on artifacts and maybe up your land from 35% to 40%. You also have to keep track of what your opponents are doing, as I said earlier in the show. Keep an eye on what both of them have in their hands, what's going in and out. Take a glance at their graveyards every so often to make sure that that card is truly dead. And just keep the eyes open.